Since the release of 4.0, I have analyzed time and time again as much as I possibly could about our silly otter, from the feather in his hair to his very high boots. But I'm not here to talk about boots. Not today. Instead, I have a great many things to say about eyes. No, not these eyes. These eyes. But what do you mean? Those aren't eyes. Well, dear viewer, let's just call it intuition. Yep, it's definitely intuition. Okay. So both Raiden Shogun Puppet and Scaramouche's Eva suit has these palm eyes. Yet, for some reason, Morax doesn't, even though he's also got that big hands thing going. I don't know why, but it's super weird. That just means that this video's context doesn't include him. What we will discuss is a theory on eyes, silver leyline trees, and what ascension domains are. Also, I'll include my guess at the identity of the Irminsul tree. Game reference material will be in the description box. Also, there will not be any spoilers past 4.2. We've got things to cover, so I won't waste any more time. There is significance in both Raiden Shogun and Scarabot having these palm eyes. Scaramouche, as everybody knows, is a puppet carved from wood, but not just any wood. White wood. And silver is known as a white metal, so being crafted from silver leyline branches is a reasonable deduction. Then, if white wood is A's chosen material, it stands to reason that the Shogun puppet would be made from the same stuff. Remember, Scarra was only considered flawed in emotions, not in his craft. No reason to scrap perfectly good blueprints. And when we fight the Shogun puppet, she also has this secondary form, one that A does not share. Though there are similarities between the Shogun and Scarabot, it's hard to know how much influence Scarra had in the building and the design of his robot. However, note a couple of key features of his. Multiple pairs of arms, pointed ears, horns, and of course, eyes on the hands. But between the ears and the hands, the similarity to Monsieur Neuvillette is obvious. That's right, folks. I'm saying that Scarra fashioned himself after a dragon. Think about it. He didn't want to be an Archon, and especially didn't want to be like his mother. Rather, he aimed to rid the world of and overthrow the Order of Seven. Adopting the image of the original rulers, aka Dragon Sovereigns, seems an appropriate visage to take. I imagine this info on the Dragon Sovereigns was found in those Abyss expeditions of Scars. I already made a video explaining why I think dragon knowledge is dug up from the Abyss, so we'll move on. You should be asking yourself, if Scarabot is dragon-themed, why does the Shogun's second form look similar? Well, it's not that she specifically has anything to do with dragons. Rather, the wood of Irminsul, that both she and Scaramouche are made of, are related to dragons. Before we expand on this point, we need to dig deeper into eyes in Genshin. Eye themes are all over the place, from visions to hilly churls to melusines with special detective sight. But where we're going to start is Inazuma. A sets up this omnipresent statue, embedding visions into it. Now, the interesting thing about this statue, for the purposes of this video, is how the wings are fashioned. 1, stemming from the lower back, and 2, eyes on the tips of the feathers. Now, what IRL bird has eyes on their feathers? If you're not picturing a peacock, well, I have no idea what you're thinking. But Genshin has used peacocks in their designs many times, like Kaya, Kaching, and the logo for Spontamad's school in the Academia, to name a few. Now, in Greek myth, Argus is the name of a 100-eyed giant that was slayed by Hermes. After a tragic end, Hera took Argus's 100 eyes and preserved them on the feathers of a bird, making the peacock's iconic image. Now, in Genshin terms, the most ancient civilization in lore is based on ancient Greece. This helps us connect a few pieces. Now look at the description for the Jade Plume Terra Shroom. It expands on the Spontamad logo inspiration. It reads, "Its tail has a lovely jade plumage that seems very similar to that of the ancient sacred beast that the Spontamad school reveres." So now we have a sacred beast, huh? One that's closely tied to ley lines, eh? And by the way, Spontamad school specializes in studying ley lines. A beast with many eyes, combined with this idea of visions being the eyes of an omnipresent creature, well, now we're getting somewhere. Because this idea of embedding visions in the statue just feels like returning an item to its own. And thanks to Neuvillette, we know visions belong to elemental dragon sovereign authorities. By the context alone, our 100-eyed sacred beast could be a dragon. And don't worry about that feather imagery, because after all, Dvalin is a dragon that has both plumage and scales. It wouldn't be much of a stretch, but the breadcrumbs don't end there. The purpose of visions is to improve the owner, to refine oneself to the point of ascension, right? And the materials we use to ascend are also sourced from the ley lines. That is, the silver trees and the large flower blossoms. If our goal is ascension and the means to do so is the loot you gather for it, that these come from the same source isn't a surprise. To illustrate, when you fix a car, you have to use parts compatible for the car, often from the same company or brand. But you might wonder about enemies from beyond the world, like the star-devouring narwhal. It doesn't actually make a difference. The reason being is that we don't get drops from a boss in the storyline, and that's the only time we fight the boss for real, with the exception of Indarius. These black leyline blossoms only appear after conquering a memory of the fight. Indarius is technically a manifestation of memories, so it counts, I guess. Now tag back to eyes for a second. Take a look at the floor tiles inside an Ascension domain. Does this pattern remind you of anything? How about now? These floor tiles are slitted eyes. In fact, Ascension domains are the only place this floor texture is used. So why are we being watched in these testing grounds? The enshrined silver tree is the only thing in here, really. And how could a mindless resin vending machine watch us? That's ridiculous! Well, these are no mere trees. They are, in fact, former elemental life forms. I should explain. Inside a Pep's Heart Oasis, you'll notice that before the battle, the environment in the oasis has these dead trees scattered throughout. But mid-fight, all these withered trees will disintegrate. This is a result of strengthening Apep's core, prior to which Apep is on the verge of death. And as we know, other elemental beings spawned of Apep will turn into trees of withering at the end of their life. This is on theme with Dendro, being plants and everything. However, this is not limited to just Dendro. Note Aishtaha's appearance. A geodragon that can use other elements through the ley lines. Yet Dendro is not one of those possible. But he has a tree growing out of his tail. Well, seeing as he's suffering from severe erosion, it could easily be said that Aishtaha is also at the end of his life. So the tree imagery matches his context. Then, Hydroarchon Egeria, a native-made elemental life form, became a jello tree after death. Although Rukadavada had a hand in that. But more than that, Durin's blood is leyline tree compatible. Even Makoto converted her consciousness into the seed that sprouted the sacred Sakura tree, which, according to the Sumeru Glider, A is some wood thing made of electro. But they're twins after all, so Makoto should be the same. Finally, in Fontaine, Rather than a tree, Elenus is a petrified dragon corpse. Despite the inconsistency with Elenus, this does give us the proof that elemental life forms can both sprout into a tree or petrify. So if they can do both, a petrified leyline tree is just a bitty baby step away. And what about ley lines being interconnected as a massive worldwide magic system? Well, this idea of a smaller part merging with a greater whole has been around for a while. From Aranara to Oceanids, even Venti is likely a smaller part of the Winds of Time, and can probably merge with a greater whole. The fact is that leyline trees can merge with Irminsul. As with Makoto, her tree was basically plugged into the ley lines. So where am I going with this? Suppose that domains are the tombs of dragons or elemental beasts, and the trees that oversee our tests of mastery are one and the same. Then this eye decoration isn't that weird. Each beast presents a challenge or a boon for us to overcome their domain. And when we prove our mastery over the elements, we gain the approval of Elemental Beast. In doing so, we receive your blessings for resin. Our loot definitely doesn't come from Celestia, even though those crowns hanging up there would like us to think so. The magical energy is sourced from the Silver Tree, and by game lore, the tree stretches from the heavens to the abyss. Celestia might control part of the tree in the way of Irminsul stars, but there is no way they have full control over this system. But speaking of Irminsul, it's time we talk about who or what Irminsul is. Now, if the little trees are elemental beasts, then the head honcho, Big Daddy Tree Irminsul, must be the elemental beast. Consider, that 100-eyed giant was actually known as Argus Panoptus, or roughly translated, Argus the All-Seeing. This should remind you of the term omnipresent. Literally a beast that can see all the world at once. What else records all the world at all times? That's right, Irminsul. I highly doubt there are two omnipresent beings. Thus, the beast and the tree should be one and the same. So consider another factor. The statue in Inazuma wears a pendant that resembles an oculus. Think of what the traveler does in every region, collecting oculus of every element and returning them to statues of 7. The statues of 7 were coined by Celestia. However, I think the statues being placed on leyline veins was more of a power move than anything. Traveler doesn't have any business restoring power to Celestia. After all, the heavenly principles caused the separation of them and their twin. Rather, the oculi, or eyes, belong to that of the omnipresent beast, and the dragon that has domain over all the elements is Nibelung, the king. In the same video I mentioned earlier, I theorized that Nibelung is the host sustaining the great dream of this world. The only thing I want to point out here is that the dream's host has the power to control the dream as they see fit. And well, oh well, tampering with Irminsul changes the facts in the entire world. I wonder, if we return all the scattered eyes of the beast, will the king awaken? But said awakening would surely mean the destruction of the world. But wherever you're at in this world, I hope you enjoy the rest of your day. This is Kraken, jumping ship before I can even see land.